Hello everyone, welcome again to another LazyArquitecto live stream where we teach you AutoCAD in a way that is more productive so you can stop wasting your time. So as always, we show up here each Friday at 10 a.m. and that is the time in Pennsylvania in the United States. So if your time is important, if you work using AutoCAD, this is your channel. So we're gonna start today's presentation with something. Let's start preparing first. So let me go and jump to the preparations section because we are gonna have an awesome tutorial today. All right. So let me see. Okay. Hope you are doing great today. And always, if you have any questions regarding AutoCAD, you can always put it on the chat and we will be able to answer you in real time. That's the beauty of being live. Okay, so let me. Okay, 1 second here. All right, I guess we are ready. So let's see. Right. Okay, so let's present today's task. On my screen, I have a reflective ceiling plan that I need to add emergency exit lights. So the problem is that since I am using some exploded geometry with text and so on, we might have to deal with rotating text here and there. For instance, if I copy one of these items, let's say, I don't know, I need an emergency light, let's say over here, and then I will rotate my geometry like so. I had to rotate or flip my arrow also. So you can imagine all of the tedious problems of being have to rotate your text every time you place or rotate your emergency light. Now let's see how we can streamline this task, and once you learn this technique you can implement it to any block that you have. In this case, we're going to use an emergency light, but again, the technique will apply for any other task that you might have to keep rotating items containing text. Right? So let me undo that a couple of times. Okay. So to start, I am going to use a dynamic block, of course. So as you can see, here we only have exploded geometry with a couple of text. One that represents the circuit for an electrical case, and then the type of exit light. Now, before I do anything else, I am going to erase this text because we're going to use smarter text called attributes. All right. Now, before I do anything else, I'm going to go ahead and rotate this because it's now backwards. So I'm going to rotate it, everything 180, so that I have my emergency light or exit light pointing up like so. Now, to add the smart text, I'm going to use the ATT definition to insert an attribute. And we're gonna insert a couple of attributes, again, for the circuit and for the type. Now, over here under the attribute tag, we can say circuit, or we can use a abbreviation that most electricians used. For the prompt, that's all up to you, but for now we're gonna jump to the default. The default is, the number that you use most of the time. In this case, I'm gonna say 1. Now, under mode options, the only option that we need to check is the lock position, because we were gonna be able to rotate our text with a function or a grip here on the block. So lock position, justification in this case, since we want to keep the text around the same location around this block, we want the middle center. So let's pick that. And for the textile, standard is fine, that's all up to you. For the height, I'm gonna say 6 inches, and then I'm gonna click OK. So I'm ready to place my attribute text. So I'm gonna place it from the middle point all the way to the left, about 1'4", and I'm gonna press enter. As you can see, my attribute was placed exactly from that center point, and that's very important because we want to keep this attribute and block coordinated. So now we're gonna place the same attribute on the other side. So let's do the same steps. ATT to insert the attribute. In this case, is gonna be for the type, and the default, again, that's all up to you, but X is the most used type for this exit line. Mode, lock position, and the justification would be, again, middle center and 6 inches. That's fine. So let's play the second attribute from this center point all the way to the right, 1'4". I'll press enter. That's very important, again, to keep it consistent between how far away is the text from your block. Otherwise, you'll have a problem when we start adding some actions and parameters and make these blocks matter. Okay, so the next step is to select all of our items and make this a block using the B shortcut. Over here, we can name our block exit light. I'm gonna call it lazy exit light. So base point, yes, we want to specify that on the screen. Open in block editor, make sure that's checked also, so we can start adding some actions and parameters to this block. Allow exploring, always I like to have that check also, in case another person is using our block and they want to explore it. That's fine to us. So I'm gonna click OK and place the insertion base point. Now, this is how you insert or use your block. In my case, I align this base of the exit line with the door or the wall. So that's why I'm gonna place the base point right about here. And I'm gonna click OK to accept those defaults. All right, we are inside our block editor, and here is where the fun part comes. Let me stop for a moment and see if you were able to follow along so far. If there are any questions on the chat, let me see, let me check. Okay, no questions so far. So let's keep moving. So over here, what we need to do next is start adding some of the parameters and actions from the block authoring palette. If you don't see it in your screen, you can open it from the ribbon, also block authoring palette. All right. So what are we trying to achieve here? What we're trying to achieve is so that we can add a property, a grip or a point that we can use to rotate our entire exit light and try to keep the text horizontal, so we don't have to manually fix the text every time we rotate our block. So that will save us a lot of time. So let's see how we can do that. First, what I need to do is give me 1 second. Okay, so let's continue. So let's see. The way we can isolate our or separate our attribute from the block itself is first by using a point from the parameter option, so that we can then use that point to avoid rotating our text or our attribute. So I'm going to add a point for each attribute, and the important part is it gotta be from the center of the attribute. As you can see, I have a snap option right there. If you don't have that option, you can turn it on from the object snaps. So when I see that, I'm gonna click right there. Finally, I'm going to specify the label location around here. Now there is an exclamation mark. That means that this parameter is missing something. What is missing is an action. So the action that we need is the move action. So I'm going to select that and select my parameter. But before I do that, I forgot an important step here. So I'm going to cancel that because we need to change some of these options here on this point parameter. So the way we change some of these options is by selecting it and going to our properties. Over here, under the chain actions, we need to change that to yes, so that way we can keep our text horizontal. And for the number of grips also, we don't want to see that when we use our block. So to change that, I'm going to change it to 0, so that way again the grip is not there. Because if we start moving our grip for our attributes, when we rotate it, it's going to be a mess. It's going to be a text on a random location, or sorry, the attribute in a random location, and we don't want that. So now that we change those two properties, it's time to add the action. Let's add the move action, and let's select our point parameter, and now it's asking to select our objects. Now, to select our objects, I'm going to select this point parameter and the attribute only. So I'm going to press enter, and you can see the exclamation mark went away. Again, we don't want to apply the move action to the entire block, only to the attributes. So I'm going to do the same steps for this other attribute. Again, a point parameter from the center point, gonna click, I'm gonna select my point parameter, change the property of the change action to yes, and the number of grips to 0. After that, we added an action, and the action was the moved. We selected our point parameter, and then we selected our objects, in this case the attribute and the point parameter. Press enter, and here we go. We successfully applied a move and a point parameter to our attributes. And the reason why we did that is so when we add a rotation parameter to our block from the parameters section, so rotation, so it's asking for a base point in this case. So the base point gotta be at the origin point, or 0, 0, which is right here. You can see the X and Y coordinates. So I'm gonna click right there. Now, for the radius of the parameter, that's again very, very important. Because look what happened if I just randomly place this. So I'm gonna, let's say, place right there. And for the rotation angles, 0 is fine. So again, this has an exclamation mark, this parameter, and we already know that it's missing something. What is missing is an action. But before that, I'm gonna move this grip, because when we rotate this block, I like to rotate it from this point over here. So that's not a problem. I can move the grip right there. Now, let's add the action to see what happens. I'm going to add the action, in this case, the rotate. And of course, I'm going to select my rotate parameter, in this case, the angle 1. So I'm going to select that. And for my objects, it's very important to select everything but the attributes, the two attributes. We want to keep them horizontal. We don't want to rotate them. So I'm going to press enter, and let's see what happens now when we test our block. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate this. It looks like it's rotating nicely. And yeah, you can see now how beautifully our block is rotating, and our text is still showing horizontal, which is great. Now, let's go ahead and close the block editor, because I want to add another option here. The option that I want to add is, sometimes we might not need this arrow over here, and sometimes we do. So I like to have a feature to show and hide this option. So the way I'm going to do it is adding or implementing a visibility parameter. So let's select that. I'm going to click that. And it's very important where we place our visibility parameter. In this case, I'm gonna specify here on the center point, like so. Now, you can see immediately there's another exclamation mark, because it's missing something in this parameter. So what is missing is from the properties, from the ribbon, there is this visibility state. So let's click on it, and we will have a window, a visibility state window. Currently, it's called visibility state 0, but we can rename that. Let's say arrow on, because that's where this is going to show with the arrow. And then I can create another one and say arrow off. Now click OK. Now I'll click OK for now. and you can control or change this from the ribbon. So you can see there is an arrow off and it's showing everything. Let me regenerate so we can see things better. And when I change to arrow on, still showing everything. So when I change to arrow on, this looks alright because the arrow is showing up. But when I go to arrow off, I want to hide this. So what I'm going to do is select the arrow, and you can right click and say object visibility, and here you can select the option that you like. In this case, we can say hide for current state. Here we go. So again, when we change to arrow on, the arrow is showing, and arrow off, the arrow is not showing. Great. So let's go ahead and do a test on a real drawing. So let's go ahead and save the changes. And here's our block. In this case, let's say we have the block right there. We can go ahead and place it in this door and rotate it like so. And great. Our type as well as our circuit is showing correctly. In this case, I don't need an arrow, so I can go ahead and turn the arrow off like so. Great. Now, I saw a problem still here on this block, and that's the reason why we like to test it in a real drawing environment, so we can see what else is missing. And what I don't like is this grip display is basically floating when we rotate our block. You can see I want to keep it always on the center of the block, so that way I don't cause any confusion. So let's go back to the block, and the reason why it's not being kept on the center is because we added this visibility later. So we need to somehow add that grip to our rotation or rotate action. So the way we do it is selecting the rotation action and right click and say action selection set. Over here we can create a new selection or modify the selection set. I'm gonna click modify and make sure here on the command line the option is add and is not remove, so that way we can add our grip, our visibility, and press enter. So let's go ahead and save the changes, and let's rotate this block and let's do a final test. Let's say I need to copy this maybe over here on this wall, and let's rotate it. And great, our grip is now being or kept center always. And of course I need an arrow here, so I'll use an arrow, and I can keep adding or implementing my exit light quickly and easily, again with this quick dynamic block that we just created to simplify this task. Of course, if you ever need to change, let's say the circle number, that's quickly, you can just double click and change maybe to 2. If you want to change the type, that's fine, you can change it maybe to L. But it's so easy now and so simple again to place your emergency lights here in AutoCAD. So what do you think about this technique? Again, very quick technique, but very, very powerful. I use or apply this technique to most of my blocks that I need to rotate every time. This can be useful for, let's say, horn and strobes, exit lights, emergency lights, I don't know, you name it. All right, So let's see if there are any questions on the chat. Let's see. Before we wrap this up, for some reason there are no comments. I don't know if it's something now working with the chat or something, because I don't see some of our friends that usually show up. All right, so I guess I'm gonna start thinking on our next topic for next Friday, 10 a.m. See what are we gonna do next week. All right. So before we go, I want to mention something very important. If you ever feel stressful, or your boss keeps asking why things take so long, you might not be using the fastest methods. There is a better way to work. Join our community, the LazyArquitectos. It's a membership where I share everything I create, like the dynamic block that we create today. And we have macros, dynamic blocks, templates, drawings, with no limits. So if you saw it in YouTube, you'll get full access. So check it out at lazyarquitecto.com/members. Right, I'm gonna see you here next Friday at 10 a.m. Bye bye.